Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, post-match. Aryna Sabalenka versus Coco Gauff, Australian Open 2024 semifinal. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video. Sabalenka wins it in straights and will have a chance to defend her Australian Open title in the final on Saturday. Also a revenge victory after Gauff beat her at the previous major, US Open semifinal. And this was a much better match than that. Don't let the straight set versus three set thing fool you. This match was better. It was just as competitive and dramatic and compelling in terms of the closeness of it. But instead of an absolute Aryna Sabalenka implosion, and look, again, credit to Gauff. She used her athleticism really well, her defense really well in that match. But instead of a Sabalenka implosion, it was actually, I think, two players playing close to their best in Gauff and Sabalenka in this particular semifinal. And there were a lot of factors coming in that suggested that Aryna was going to have a chance to put forth probably a better effort. The main thing, I'm not going to say the main thing actually, because I don't know which one of these things are more important, but two stand out to me. One, the crowd, and that Ash crowd in favor of Gauff in New York is intense, and Breakpoint certainly documented in terms of, you know, her interviews that she gave to Netflix. And she basically talked about how she started focusing a ton on the crowd during that match instead of focusing on the task at hand. But the second thing is roof was closed. And I think this was a really good break for Sabalenka, unlucky break for Coco Gauff, just to take away the elements, because obviously in this matchup, Gauff wants Aryna to make errors, and you know, she arguably needs Sabalenka to miss a little bit in order to win. Those errors are going to come less frequently when you take the elements out of the equation. Then you also have Australian Open confidence for Sabalenka. She's just on such a tear on these courts, and she's been dominating. Yeah, there's a little bit of defending champion pressure, and that's why I wasn't quite sure about Sabalenka pre-tournament in terms of if she's going to go all the way and win the title. I was a little bit hesitant, like, is she going to defend a title here? Because that can sometimes be a little bit tougher. But I think all things considered, just the fact that she has been dominating on this court now for how many matches in a row, I think is also a tick in her favor. And yeah, she was phenomenal. So let's get into the match and the specifics of the performance. Start with the serving. Sabalenka was the far better server in this match, and especially in the early stages, it was absolutely the number one storyline. The second serve got Gauff down early, and it never really stabilized. Coco double faulted 5 times on her first 8-second serves. And the frequency of the double faults from there certainly got under control. She finished the match with 9 double faults, so not terrible after that initial 5. But she hit some really slow second serves that were breakfast, lunch, and dinner for Sabalenka. There were some second serves that Coco hit that Aryna's going to hit a winner off of, 70% of the time. So it definitely, that got in her head. That was a problem for her. I think that was definitely the worst part of Gauff's game in this semifinal. For Sabalenka, first serve percentage, wonderful, 76%. And she made 16 out of her first 18 first serves. Interesting thing and a good catch by the ESPN broadcast here. So the head-to-head between Sabalenka and Gauff is now 3-4. Gauff winning 4, Sabalenka winning 3. First serve percentage has dictated, I mean, it's correlation, right? It's not causation apples to apples because there are so many factors in a tennis match. But there's a correlation here that has developed over their head-to-head. Sabalenka is 0-4 when serving under 60%. So that's her 4 losses in the head-to-head. She's 3-0 when serving over 60% against Coco. I want to shout out her 5-4 game in the second set when it was time to shut the door. And that is never... I felt 50-50 going into that game. You never feel 100% confident at the end of a major, given what we've seen from Sabalenka. You think about the Roland Garros semifinal. You think about the fact that she lost her first 3 major semifinals with leads. So it was always like, okay, how is this going to go? And the first serve was her best friend in that 5-4 game. In the second, she hit 4 unreturned first serves on the 8 points that were played in the game. And that's also how she won the final 2 points of the match, with unreturned first serves. Coco, all in all, she did actually a really great job of making returns in play over the course of the match. So I do want to say that. But Aryna always gives herself the green light on the +1. She was really good on that third shot. And she just does such a good job of being really, really vicious on that first opportunity. So that was a big deal. And then from the baseline, consistency in defense, which provided a path to victory for Coco Gauff in New York last year. Not so much in this match. It wasn't going to play out that way, and that was pretty clear. Now, the original plan for Sabalenka was to finish points at the net. It was very, very obvious that is what her and her team talked about coming into the match, because Sabalenka was coming forward way more than she usually does. That was really not the answer. Like, sometimes you have a game plan, it doesn't work, but other stuff can kind of go a little bit, can come a little bit easier than expected, and you still end up being in good shape for the match. That's what happened for Sabalenka, because I don't think the game plan worked. And that's because the volley execution was horrendous. And if Gauff came back to win the match, we might be talking about things like the volley that Sabalenka missed in the first game of the second set on breakpoint, which was a really easy backhand volley. So, she ended up 11 for 20 at net, but I mean, I'm surprised that it was above 50%, and just given some of the easy volleys that she missed, that number should have been, 16 or 17 for 20, really. The good news is the ground game was dialed in, especially in the second set. So there was just a reliability factor to Sabalenka's power baseline game. And there was also enough speed through the court. So she didn't really need to finish points up at net like I think she expected to need to. But by the way, like, it is a good mindset. Like, the fact that Sabalenka was ready for the extra balls to come back and play, I think she said something about that post-match actually as well. The fact that was her mindset, that Coco is so quick and so good defensively, we're going to be ready for extra balls. We're going to come forward and try to finish at net. I think that being prepared for that was probably a good thing. The other part of this was Coco, and maybe this was also a byproduct of Sabalenka just not missing as much, not making as many unforced errors off the ground. But Coco made far more aggressive errors herself. So she was much more inconsistent than what she usually is. But I don't think it's because her timing was off or her footwork was off. I don't think she was having a bad day. I just think she was going for more. She was just a little bit more ambitious in her shot selection than usual. And I think that's because she felt she had to be more aggressive. And I think she was right. Like, again, I don't think she could have just made a bunch of balls in play and that was going to be enough here. I actually do think she had to be aggressive. But that did come at the expense of some errors. My critique for Coco in her baseline game was I feel like in her attempt to be aggressive, her hitting was a little bit one speed for my liking. I think she played into Sabalenka's hands a little bit by just hitting the ball a lot straighter than usual and not mixing up her speeds much. It's like, and Coco, she doesn't love to slice, Coco, but where's the higher, slower ball, the heavier one? She did it once actually in a big spot and it drew an error. She hit a backhand cross court that instead of hitting it really straight and fast, which is what she was doing the whole match, everything straight and fast. I think Sabalenka likes that a little bit. She hit this one backhand cross court when Sabalenka was serving for the first set at 5-3. That was slower and higher, and Aryna missed her backhand down the line, having to kind of generate off of a higher, slower ball, which is harder to do. So I thought that the variation wasn't there for Gauff. and that helped Sabalenka play consistent from the back. Coco's forehand did play a factor. It was good for 90% of the match. You can't say that Gauff had a glaring forehand issue here, but you can say that inarguably for Gauff, the biggest missed opportunity of the match, the forehand was front and center in terms of what went wrong for her. So as for why I think the Gauff forehand was good for most of the match, I think she was going after it, and that's usually when her forehand is at its best and actually when it misses the least. She's another one of these players. I think I said the same thing about Zverev the other day. When she's going for it, she hits it better because her acceleration and her footwork are usually in a better place when she's aggressive. And the threat of Sabalenka and the fact that you can't drop the ball short and the fact that you're going to be attacked if you dip in quality, the threat of Sabalenka, just like it did for Zverev against Alcaraz, it's going to help the forehand along, actually, because you're going to accelerate. You're going to go after it. But serving for the first set, 6-5, 30 love up, it certainly wavered very clearly. At 30 love, Sabalenka forced an error with a hard return into Gauff's forehand. At 30-15, Sabalenka actually defended on her backhand with a slower, kind of lower mid-court slice. And Gauff, here's another thing about the Gauff forehand. Yes, it can be rushed, but also in the mid-court on slow balls that are low, it's tough with her Western grip when she has to hit mid-court approach shots from low contact points. Gauff is not good from that position. And Sabalenka, she doesn't do this often, but yeah, she used a slice, and Coco missed a mid-court forehand here at 30-15 in the net. 30 all. Gauff, tight forehand down the line. Sabalenka leathered a backhand cross court that forced an error. So this isn't a forehand error, but this was a tight forehand that gave Sabalenka a chance to attack. 30-40 break point. Gauff forehand unforced error long. So 4 mistakes in a row on the forehand. Don't just look at errors, look at mistakes. 4 in a row. Went to a tiebreak. Great tiebreak by Sabalenka. That was a big spot. Another big spot, and this was the slam winning moment, in my opinion, for Sabalenka. If everything goes well on Saturday for Aryna, this to me was kind of the signature moment of the run. And I think most champions have that at some point over the course of 7 matches. You're going to have a moment where it's like, okay, this is worthy of a major champion. Like, you just showed why you're in this spot. And for Sabalenka, this was 3-4, love 30 down. So obviously, Gauff knocking on the door. She would have served for the second set to force a third, especially with all the demons involved here, as Gauff has beaten Sabalenka in the past, not just in the U.S. Open match. She's come from a set down a bunch of times. So you have those demons. You have the slam semifinal demons for Sabalenka. You're down love 30 in the service game. And, man, she just played 4 beautiful points in a row. I don't want to get bogged down with the details, but just terrific offense off the ground, really, on 4 points in a row. And love 30, you know what? Let's do it. Let's get into it. Love 30, second serve. She hits a spectacular wide serve on the deuce side to drag Coco way off the court on a second serve, attacks the next forehand down the line into the open court. That's a winner. At 15-30, Gauff hits a backhand down the line where the ball was a little bit out of her strike zone, so she didn't get enough on the backhand down the line. And Sabalenka hits a forehand cross court on the run. Huge, once again, open court. Forehand down the line winner from Sabalenka on the next ball. 30 all, Sabalenka backhand cross court build. Gauff defends with the open stance, backhand cross court. Sabalenka skips around and rips her forehand inside in for a winner. What I loved about this is it's a beautiful kind of 2-shot combination for Sabalenka. The backhand was safe. It was a cross court ball. It was big, but it was a setup shot. and then she kind of found the finish on the next ball. I mean, that's what Sabalenka, that's when she's at her best, is when she's not trying to get it all in one. 40-30, serve plus backhand down the line, forcing an error. So there's your championship winning hold for Sabalenka. And now one more match where she's got to really just play that level. And if she does, she's not going to lose. Newsflash. She will beat Zhang Xinwen or Diana Yastremska. Gauff also, great start to her season. No shame in this. Almost nobody wins back-to-back after winning the maiden slam, and it looked like Gauff was in a position to maybe do it, but it's only happened 3 times in this century. Venus did it. Jennifer Capriati did it. That was back-to-back years, and then Osaka did it more recently. So it rarely happens, and Coco's looking good as well. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.